All right, let's talk about a guy who had arguably one of the worst resumes ever, but for all the right reasons. His name was Daniel, and his life story reads like a high-stakes political thriller mixed with a survival show. If you think you've had a bad week at work, just wait until you hear about his career. It all starts when he's just a teenager. Imagine being ripped from your home, your family, everything you've ever known, and marched off to a foreign land. That was Daniel's reality. He was part of the elite of Judah, but that didn't matter when the Babylonian army, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, came knocking. Daniel and his friends were carted off to Babylon, not as guests, but as political pawns. This wasn't a study abroad program. This was exile. He was forced to learn a new language, a new culture, and serve the very king who had just conquered his people. Talk about a rough start. So Daniel is in Babylon trying to navigate this new, hostile environment. The king decides to train these bright young exiles for service in his court. Sounds like a good deal, right? A promotion? Not quite. The first test was the king's food. This wasn't just a dietary preference. The food was likely offered to Babylonian idols, and eating it would have been a direct violation of Daniel's faith. So here he is, a captive teenager, and his first move is to defy the most powerful man in the world. He politely requested a diet of vegetables and water. It was a massive risk. The official in charge was terrified, thinking the king would have his head if Daniel and his friends looked less healthy than the others. But Daniel had conviction. He proposed a 10-day trial. Let us eat our way. You feed the others your way, and then you be the judge. Miraculously, at the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthier and better nourished than everyone else. He passed the test, but this was just a warm-up for the kind of pressure he was about to face. Soon after, King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream that leaves him deeply disturbed. He calls in all his magicians, enchanters, and sorcerers, the so-called wise men of Babylon. He doesn't just want them to interpret the dream. He wants them to tell him what the dream asterisk was asterisk in the first place. An impossible task. When they inevitably fail, the king flies into a rage and orders all the wise men in Babylon to be executed. And guess who is now officially part of that group? Yep, Daniel. So through no fault of his own, Daniel is on death row simply for being associated with the king's failing advisors. Does he panic? No. Daniel calmly asks for a little time and goes to his friends to pray. That night, the secret of the dream is revealed to Daniel in a vision. He goes before the king and not only tells him the dream, a giant statue made of different metals, but also interprets it as a prophecy of future kingdoms. Nebuchadnezzar is so blown away that he promotes Daniel to a high position, making him ruler over the province of Babylon and chief of all the wise men. A huge promotion, for sure, but it also painted a massive target on his back. Success breeds jealousy, and in a royal court, jealousy is a dangerous poison. The pressure keeps mounting. Later, Nebuchadnezzar, in a fit of ego, builds a giant golden statue and commands everyone to bow down and worship it whenever they hear the royal orchestra. The penalty for refusal? Being thrown into a blazing hot furnace. Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refuse to bow. The king is furious. He has the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual and has them thrown in. But miraculously, they survive, completely unharmed. While the text doesn't say where Daniel was, you can bet the political fallout was intense. His closest friends had just publicly defied the king. He was constantly living on a knife's edge, where one wrong move, or even the right move by a friend, could get him killed. Then the king has another dream, this time about a giant tree that gets chopped down. Again, none of his advisors can figure it out. So who does he call? Daniel. Daniel interprets the dream, and it's not good news for the king. It's a prophecy that Nebuchadnezzar will lose his mind and his kingdom, living like a wild animal for 7 years, until he acknowledges that God is the true ruler. Imagine being the guy who has to deliver that performance review to your boss, the most powerful and unstable monarch on the planet. Telling a narcissist he's about to be humbled is not a recipe for a long life. But Daniel does it. And just as he predicted, it all comes true. Years pass, empires change. Babylon falls to the Medes and Persians. Now Daniel is an old man, serving a new king, Darius. And guess what? He's so good at his job, so competent and trustworthy, that King Darius plans to set him over the entire kingdom. The other administrators and high officials are consumed with jealousy. They can't find any fault in his work, any corruption, or any negligence. He's just too good. So they decide to use his greatest strength, his faith, against him. They trick King Darius into signing an unbreakable decree. For the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human other than the king will be thrown into the lion's den. They knew Daniel's routine. They knew he prayed 3 times a day, every day, by an open window facing Jerusalem. Daniel hears about the new law. It's a trap designed specifically for him. He could have prayed in secret. He could have closed the window. He could have taken a 30-day break. But he doesn't. He goes home, opens his window, and prays just as he always had. He chose faithfulness over his own life. His enemies catch him in the act and rush to the king. King Darius is devastated. He realizes he's been played, that his pride has led him to condemn his most faithful servant. He spends the whole day trying to find a loophole, but the law is absolute. As evening falls, they take Daniel and throw him into the den of lions. The king, heartbroken, says to him, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." The king spends a sleepless, fasting night, and at the first light of dawn, he hurries back to the lion's den. He calls out in anguish, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" And from inside the den, a voice calls back, "It's Daniel. He's alive." He says, "My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight." King Darius is overjoyed. He orders Daniel to be lifted out, and there wasn't a single scratch on him. Then, in a moment of swift and brutal justice, the king has the men who falsely accused Daniel, along with their families, thrown into the very same den. The lions overpowered them instantly. So, let's recap. Daniel was exiled as a teen, put on death row, repeatedly forced to deliver bad news to unstable kings, watched his friends get thrown into a furnace, and was ultimately tossed into a pit of hungry lions because his coworkers were jealous of his success. His entire life was a masterclass in thriving under pressure, navigating treacherous politics, and staying true to his convictions, no matter the cost. It definitely sucked to be Daniel, but his story of unwavering faith in the face of impossible circumstances is one of the most powerful and inspiring ever told. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into history's most fascinating figures. See you next time.